Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today I'll be talking about cultivating a reading culture in our children. In case this is your first time here, my name is Chioma Moma, and I believe that as parents, we can pursue our passions and still raise our children successfully to be responsible individuals. So first of all, you might be asking yourself, why does my child even need to be a reader? Are there any benefits to reading? Of course there are lots of benefits. When you see the world leaders and people who are thriving and excelling in every endeavor in life, one thing they will tell you that they are very big on acquiring knowledge. And the easiest way to acquire knowledge is through, yes, you guessed it, reading. Reading is truly for leaders. Readers are truly leaders. It is not just a saying, it is not just cliche, it is the truth. To acquire knowledge, one of the easiest ways are through our eyes, through what we hear. And of course, we need to read our books. And if you have a positive relationship with reading early in life, you end up having a very positive relationship with your academic books, which means you succeed better in school, and indeed, you succeed better in the workplace. You're able to get so much done. For me, I know that I was an early reader, and being an early reader meant I was able to really do well and be what I call a speed reader. Speed readers read really fast, and that helps me in my tasks in the office all the time. So reading is fantastic. Why do I have my glasses on? Because, well, people also think that when you're a reader, you end up, there's always this thing of you see an image of someone reading and wearing glasses. Not necessarily. You do not have to be, always have glasses on, okay? So that's just by the way. So reading is not something that is boring. Reading is not just for nerds or whatever you think. Reading gives you wings. Reading opens up your mind. Reading gives you exposure. Reading gives you a very holistic and all-round education. So if you're concerned about your child and you're thinking, my child doesn't like to read, how can I help my child read? I will give you a few tips. If you, an adult, wants to be an author, for instance, and you think, how can I learn? Well, you also have to be able to read. Readers make the best authors. If you do not read, your writing will end up being mediocre. So reading is not only for your child, but reading is for you. Reading inspires so much. When you read, you can just go to distant lands and experience so many things. Reading is enlightenment. The truth is that when you see a leader who reads, you see a leader who is well equipped to truly, truly lead. So, like I said again, I'm going to give you some tips. And before I give you those tips, I'll tell you about an NGO I started called Learn. Let's Encourage a Reading Nation. For this purpose, because I really believe that we need to help our children read for them to have a better chance at success in life. A healthy reading culture is a very positive vibe. And through the books I write and through so many things I do, and through the things I do, going to schools to talk to children, and even with my own children, I encourage them to read. My number one tip is that you need to start early. If you want to cultivate a healthy reading culture in your child, then the earlier you start reading, the better. You don't have to wait until your child can actually read to introduce them to books. Yes, you heard me. You can actually introduce them to books while they're still in your womb by reading stories to them, and once they come out, please start reading to them. There are so many interesting and exciting books for children of every age. I think of books like The Hungry Caterpillar by Eric Kyle. I think of books like, Moo, Ba, La La La, which is just hilarious and is a great one for little babies and toddlers. There are so many amazing books out there. So you should get books for children, age-appropriate books, and start reading to them very early. Okay? Do not wait until they can actually read. That way they have a beautiful connection with reading. They see it as something fun, something exciting, something to look forward to, something that helps them bond with their parents or whoever is reading with them. They see it as a fantastic activity. They don't just see it as something you do when you go to school. Okay? So get your books. There are lots of lovely books by Nigerian authors as well. Go to Amazon. My books, which were written with Nigerian children and African children and even children all over the world in mind, have a lot of things that you can teach your children values from. And then, like I said, think of books that are age appropriate. There's so many of them that really help children of every, which are like classics, which, all my children, I read to all my children and they love. Some of them are just amazing. The great thing about getting these fun books, like I mentioned, by Eric Carle and Sandra Boyd, is that the children even commit them to memory. Books about body parts, about, all sorts of interesting things, books about animals and shapes, and they also learn from those books as well. So do get lovely books that are age appropriate for your children. Another thing you need to do is to make reading fun and cozy. Make it a fun activity. Reading has to be something that is fun. Think about Tales by Moonlight, which we all listen to as when we were growing up, or which some of us listen to. Think about oral storytelling, which is part of our African culture. You need to make it fun for them. What you can do is get a lovely, cozy place in your house. It could be a chair, it could be their bed, somewhere that makes them happy, and read stories to them. My 6-year-old loves the Mr. Men series, and because it's such a funny bedtime story, he has fun listening to the stories, the different stories, and listening to all the trouble they get into, and listening to the good thing. And he learns lessons too. Okay, and try and get into character when you're reading with your child. You can make funny faces, change your voice, wave your hands around. Try and be relatable to that child by getting into character and keep them interested. So make reading time fun for your child. Once it's a fun activity, they will be the ones begging you to read to them. There's so many things you can do when you read to your children that will make them look forward to reading. They could make like I said, where they read could even be somewhere colorful. Make it somewhere inviting so that your child will know that this is going to be something I will look forward to and I will want to do. So make story time, make reading time a fun activity for your children. Even if they can read themselves, they still enjoy hearing us tell them stories. So do not stop even when they can read. Even when they're reading, you can still read to them and make it a fun activity. And then when you're reading to your child, another way of getting them interested in reading is to let them have fun and learn. We spoke about fun before. Now make sure that they're also learning. When they're learning something and having fun, it makes learning easier. Think about it, books that teach you about psalms, even the hungry caterpillar that I mentioned earlier teaches you about eating and different fruits. My books have all sorts of lessons that you learn. Things like empathy, things like manners, things like showing respect to people. There are books about the alphabets, like the fun ABC by Sade. There are books about animals. There are books about being kind. There are books about all sorts of amazing, interesting. There are even books about learning to bake a cake, like the book written by Bome Aboderun. There are so many books on a range of topics. So you have the dual purpose of reading, entertaining your child, and learning something new. There are books about countries of the world. The last book I wrote was about a trip to the village. That book would teach your child about what it is to go to the village and have fun and enjoy your culture. Get them books that they can actually learn from. Now, the third point is something that sounds really obvious, but buy them books. Yeah. How would they learn to read if you don't buy them books in the first place? Their only contact with books should not be books that they see in school or books in the library. Fill the house with books. The odds are that the more books you have in their home, the more likely they are to read. All those things that they say, that they are bored and you're not allowing them to watch TV. Guess what? They might just pick up a book and read. Okay? It might be like stating the obvious, but the truth is that children are more likely to read when they are surrounded by books. So buy your children books on a range of topics. Buy them fun books. Buy them educational books. Buy them books that will make them know how important reading is. Growing up, I loved books because we're totally surrounded by books. Books in school, books at home. And then another point that you should have to buy them books that they love. Don't just buy them books for the sake of it. Buy them books that they will enjoy. Encourage them to be part of the book buying process. Go to the bookstore with them. For instance, I liked The Adventures of Tintin growing up, and Asterix and Obelix. My children do not enjoy it. I bought it for them thinking they would. They didn't enjoy it. So buy books that they will actually enjoy, okay? Don't just buy books because you have a nostalgic feeling about it or you think it will be a good book. On the other hand, Mr. Men series, which my last child loves, is a book I enjoyed as well. So some books that you enjoy, they will as well. But just try and make sure it's not just about you and you're buying them books that they will actually enjoy. Also think of your child's interests. If you have a child that loves football, then buy him books about a football star would make sense. If you have a child that is about to enter secondary school, then buying her books like Mallory Towers and things like that would be interesting. Think of your child's interests. Think of a particular cartoon or TV show that your child might like. And the odds are he will also love getting a book about that same character. Children are drawn to things they like. If your child loved Frozen, then odds are a book about Elsa would be such a thrill for her. If your child loved Lightning McQueen, of course he would love to read about him too. If your child loves Disney characters in general, Lion King, all those movies, buying them books about that would help. But like I said, one easy way to be sure is help them be part of the shopping process. Even if you're buying books online, help them. Tell them to be there with you. Let them be there with you to help you pick out the books. A child is more likely to read a book they picked up themselves. Okay? This does not mean you should leave them to read whatever. They shouldn't just pick any book they want, because some books might not even be age appropriate. Okay? But once the books are age appropriate, allow them to pick it themselves. It gives them a sense of a sense of independence, that they're actually making a choice. It helps them exercise their choices and their independence, and helps them feel like their opinion actually does matter when it concerns them. When I was in primary school, our headmistress had a drawer full of sweeties for children who used to read. And that was so exciting. So we were always in a hurry to read our books. Some things you can do, like starting a book challenge with your children, where if they read a particular amount of books, they get a particular reward. That will make them look forward to reading. Be careful about the things you read. This is really the next tip, which is very important. No matter how many books you allow your child to pick up, like I said, you must be part of the process. If they get to an age where they're picking books on their own, you have to be mindful of the kind of books they are reading. I remember when I must have been in secondary school like that, I'm not sure. I bought this book called Ebu My Love. It was a pace setter's book. And my father saw the title and he was alarmed. And he went ahead to read the book. And when he read it, he was like, oh, okay, this is okay for your age. The title was misleading. And he allowed me to read the book. This is something we should do for our children. Be like a census board. Make sure that book they are reading is actually age appropriate. The book might have a seemingly innocent cover or title, but it may have adult content. So be very, very careful. Don't just allow your child read anything. Don't just keep books lying around your house. I remember when I read the story of Atticus Finch in the book called To Kill a Mockingbird. It was by my mom's drawer in her room. It wasn't meant for me to read, but I read it anyway, and that was how I got introduced to civil rights, the American segregation issue, and all of that. And it was a good read for me. But what if it was filled with sex and all sorts of things? I would have been exposed too early to all of that. So thank God it was a book that did not ruin me. So you need to be careful with the kind of material you have around your home. On the other hand, I'm not going to visit a relative, and in their house they had all sorts of inappropriate magazines. Things like Dada, the sexy guy, and all sorts of funny things that were totally inappropriate for a child my age. And I read them because they were lying all over the place. In fact, in some cases, they were even hidden. I was able to find those magazines and still go through content that was totally not appropriate for a child my age. Okay? If you think you don't have time to censor books and read, then please go online and search for reviews on the books. There are lots of websites that are dedicated to reviewing material, reviewing movies, reviewing books, reviewing games. Review them yourself. Go to those sites and read and see if those books are suitable for your child, if they are content that you will actually want your child to read. Because you don't want your child to be exposed to the wrong kind of things, all in the name of, oh, I want my child to be a reader. Many children have ended up getting introduced to porn and all sorts of craziness, violence, all through the material that they read. So please, you need to be very, very careful with what you are allowing your child read. Make sure you censor it appropriately. Make sure you go through it. Make sure you use the books are right for your child. Okay? Very, very important. Another thing that is really, really important, and like I always speak about it, you want your child to read, but they've never seen you read a book as in never. You don't touch books, you don't read newspapers, nothing. Try and model what you want them to see. I know when you come back from work, you're tired, you want to just rest. That's fine. Try a relaxing read. Take a novel. Take a newspaper. Just something. Okay? Let your child see that you have a healthy relationship with books and with reading yourself. Why? Studies have shown that children who are voracious readers were inspired by either their father or their mother or an adult in their home who was a heavy reader. That is just the truth. Your children see you, they look up to you, they admire you. The odds are if they see you reading too, they will see reading as a positive thing and be encouraged to have a positive relationship with reading. Also, another tip to help your children read is by introducing them to books with relatable characters. What do I mean by relatable characters? That's particularly why I actually started writing children's books, because many times the books we see, all the children are children that we don't look like. I don't look like. My children don't look like. They don't have the same names. They don't eat the same foods. So I started to write books that with things that my children could relate to, the kind of food that we eat, the kind of names that we bear, the kind of skin tones that we have. And that was why I started writing. But my books are all on Amazon. I will share the link to my books later. And there's so many books by, so many authors of color who look like your child, okay? Who eat the same food of your child. And even if you're not African or African American, or of African origin, reading books that have an international flavor do a lot for you. So it's good to read a variety of books, okay? Not only books you can relate to, but books that allow you to know that, look, not everybody looks like you. People have different skin tones. People have different eat different foods. People have different names. Okay, so yes, so those are two tips in one. Read books that are not about you and read books that are relatable too. Introduce your children to those kind of books. They will be excited reading about a child eating amala, eating moi moi, and things that they eat in their home. Those things are so exciting. They'll be excited seeing a child answering their name, like Morenike or Amaka or whatever their name is. Read books that are relatable to your child. You also need to introduce your children to different genres of books, not just tales and things that are make-believe. Also introduce them to things like historical fiction, things like career development, a light way. Things like academia, cuisine, through cookbooks, biography. A book that is great for history, our horrible histories, which my children love. The science fiction, all sorts of things, cartoons. You can introduce your child to a lot of things through the books. I remember growing up, we loved reading encyclopedias. We had these ones for children, and they were fantastic. What they did was that they had a part in the middle where they had all sorts of crafts for children. That was how I learned to make so many crafts. And I still have some of those encyclopedias today in my own home. And when my children say they are bored, I'm like, okay, you know what? Try making some fun stuff from this book. So crafts, there's so many things you can learn in different kinds of books. So, buy a variety of books on gardening, books on baking. The first time I started baking, I learned it from a book for children about baking, and that was how my love with baking started. Also, talking about baking, I totally recommend books for cooking and recipe books. They have some that are actually made for children. They just give them all sorts of skills that are really important. They encourage step-by-step reading, which is needed for recipes, which will teach your child how to follow instructions and do things in a particular sequence. It will teach your child the importance of measurements, the importance of processes, how science actually works, which is very important in cooking. It will also teach your child how to follow instructions. So I totally recommend baking and cooking books. Another thing that is really important and helps our children learn and appreciate reading and literacy is by taking your child to the library. Nowadays, we don't like libraries, but libraries are fantastic. Whenever I'm anywhere that has good libraries, I do not miss the opportunity to take my child to a library. Seeing all those beautiful books arranged, seeing, the beautiful, libraries are just amazing. They just make you fall in love with books. And even in Nigeria, we have a lot of interesting libraries as well. So find a local library in your area and do give it a visit. When I'm in the UK especially, I love to take my children to libraries and museums because there's so much they can learn. So libraries are a great place to visit, and they will actually get you encouraged and they will actually encourage your children to read. The children's sections are always lovely, they're always fun, and they have lots of activities. And where you can actually take your child there and be read to by an author and all of that. And there are also reading clubs all over the country. Okay, so look out for reading clubs where your child can actually go, and they have in-house libraries. Look out for local libraries. And if you don't have any local library in your area, then take your child to a bookstore. Those bookstores actually make a child look forward to reading because they will want you to buy them a book as well. Okay, so these are just a few of the tips I have to help your child get interested in reading. What has helped your child read? What has encouraged them in their reading? What has made them a more voracious reader? Think of the things, think of it, think of the reward system and all the other different things that helped you become a voracious reader. I love reading. I think reading is amazing. And I hope you are able to get your child to fall in love with reading as well. Don't forget to like this video and to subscribe so you can get more tips for parents, especially working parents who want to live their lives, fulfill their passions, and raise amazing, wholesome children. Thank you so much for listening. See you later.